Good night, everyone. I welcome you in the name of Jesus. And we are going to have some fun tonight. We will be doing Daniel chapter 10 and Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel. Now, this is the third year of Cyrus, the king of Persia, and chapter 11 is the first year of Darius. So we should have been doing chapter 11 tonight, but when we study chapter 11, you would see that it is totally unrelated to chapter 9 and chapter 10 and chapter 12. So this is why I am doing chapter 10 tonight, because chapter 10 takes off where chapter 9 left off, and you're going to see some close references. Now, we learn in the Bible that the after Malachi and Matthew, between Malachi and Matthew, there's a 400 years of silence. But really, that 400 years of silence was given to Daniel. So when we study Daniel chapter 11, it will fill in the blank between Malachi and Matthew. And this is why I'm not doing chapter 11 tonight. I will do chapter 10, which is a continuation of chapter 9, and then we go on to chapter 12. I am excited to get to chapter 12 because it is the climax of the book. It is the climax of a lot of things. And when we are studying chapter 12, we will go back and tie it up with Revelation chapter 13 and 14 and 15, and we will go back in the book of Daniel and we will put everything together in one piece, so you will see how the two books tie together, and you will see all the things that God revealed to Daniel. So we are talking about the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia. They said a thing was revealed unto Daniel, and pay attention to this, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. So there are two things we could talk about here: Cyrus, the king of Persia, and the thing that was revealed unto Daniel, and the thing that was true, and the thing that Daniel understood and understanding, and he had understanding of the vision. So we would see Daniel lived until the third year of Cyrus. But in Daniel chapter 1, verse 21, it said, and Daniel continued unto the first year of Cyrus. This was written in 605. And Daniel 1 told us that he lived and he continued and he prospered until the first year. But then that was corrected in Daniel chapter 10, verse 1, because we see in the third year of Cyrus, Daniel was still around. So you're going to find this in the book of Daniel twice, three times. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So we know that under Darius had 120 princes, and then he had three presidents, and the number one president was Daniel. So Daniel prospered under Darius. Now, they say in Cyrus' case, now I would go back in history a little bit and show you how we get to this point. Under Cyrus, Daniel also prospered. So Daniel prospered until the third year of the reign of Cyrus, the king of Persia, or the Persian. So I am sorry the slides is not working the way it's supposed to. and you have all the information in front of you, and you wouldn't understand what it is. So let's get to it. In the year 556, Nabonidus was the last king of Babylon, and he overthrew Labashi Marduk. Labashi Marduk was a kid like 9 years old, and he inherited the throne from his father. In 556, Nabonidus, together with his son Belshazzar and some other people, they killed the kid king, and Nabonidus took over the throne in Babylon. So legally, the last king of Babylon was Nabonidus. What I'm doing is I'm giving you a brief history or from Nabonidus to Cyrus. So this is what I'm doing right now. So Nabonidus took over the throne in Babylon. He was the legit king, and his son Belshazzar was the co-regent. So in 550, Nabonidus formed an alliance with Cyrus because Cyrus was a young king, and he made a deal with Nabonidus. He said, Nabonidus told him, I will help you conquer the Medes. Now remember, it wasn't the Medes and the Persians together. The Medes was one kingdom, and the Persian was a sub-kingdom of the Medes. It was a smaller kingdom. And you remember that Cyrus, his father was a guy by the name of Cambyses, and his mother was a Persian. So Cyrus was both Mede and Persian. So when he became king of the little Persian empire, he started making his move to conquer the world, and he wanted help to conquer the Medes. So Nabonidus said, I will help you conquer the Medes if you will give me the province of Haran. And Nabonidus wanted the province of Haran so that he can rebuild a temple that his mother was a priestess in. And that temple was to the god Sin. So it worked out. Cyrus got the Medes, the kingdom of the Medes, and Nabonidus, he got Haran. So he went to Haran, and he spent 3 years there, and he rebuilt the temple of Sin in memory of his mother. After that, he went roaming through the Arabian desert, and he ended up in a place called Tima. He spent 10 years there. So Nabonidus was an absentee king. He did not spend much time in Babylon. He left the ruling of the kingdom to his son Belshazzar. Now, during that time, 550 and 539, Nabonidus, he cross-cut, or he by-cut, or he turned against Cyrus. So Cyrus was on the move, and he was ready to attack Babylon. So when he was about to attack Babylon, Darius was the guy who led Cyrus's army and captured Babylon. That night, Belshazzar died, and Cyrus was awarded, he awarded Darius the kingship of Babylon. So what was happening there was that Cyrus was in charge of the whole empire, but Darius was in charge of Babylon. Now, in those days, they didn't have cell phone and computers, and the highways wasn't all that good. They didn't have fast cars and stuff like that. So the king had to put his people in place to control the conquered territory. So this is how Darius, in the book of Daniel, it said, and Darius was given the kingdom. He was not the legit king. He was given the kingdom. Somebody had to give him the kingdom, and it was Cyrus. So when they say Cyrus was the king Daniel um, was still around in the third year of Cyrus the king. It did not mean that Cyrus was the king of Babylon. It was 3 years since Cyrus took over Babylon, but he was not controlling Babylon. It was Darius who was controlling Babylon. So understand that Darius was in control, but the main person in charge of the empire was Cyrus. A thing was revealed unto Daniel, and the thing was true, and he understood the thing. So this is the next thing we have to look at. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. He understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. So the thing that he saw was the vision. So how come Daniel was able to understand this vision? He understood the vision because in Daniel chapter 9:23, Daniel said, Yea, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in a vision at the beginning. And in Daniel chapter 9:22, and he informed me and talked with me. I am now come forth to give you skill and understanding. So Daniel had help in understanding the vision that he saw. And he had help from Gabriel, the angel Gabriel. And in verse 23 it says, and I am come, this is Gabriel talking, I am come to show thee, therefore understand the matter and consider the vision. So how come Daniel understood the thing? Because he had Gabriel explaining to him what was taking place. Now, who was Gabriel? Look at Luke chapter 1, verse 19. And the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel that stand in the presence of God, and I am sent to speak unto thee and to show thee these glad tidings. He was talking to Zacharias there in the temple in Jerusalem about John the Baptist. But what I want you to see is how Gabriel identified himself. I am Gabriel that stand in the presence of God. That is the Gabriel that came to Daniel and explained the vision to him. This is why Daniel had understanding of the thing. Now in Daniel chapter 10 verse 2, in those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. Why would Daniel be mourning for 3 full weeks? Daniel was about 83 years old when this chapter was written. He was 83 years old, a very old man, when he was mourning for 3 weeks. The question is, why was he mourning for 3 weeks? This is what was going on in Daniel chapter 9. Again, I'm going back and forth, that chapter 9, chapter 10. In the first year of his reign, that is Darius, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of years. So this is when Daniel realized that the 70 years was to be accomplished, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. So Daniel was excited to understand that the 70 years that Jeremiah prophesied was about to be fulfilled. And Daniel was about 66 years in captivity. So in 3 or 4 years, the desolation of Jerusalem will be accomplished. What happened in the desolation of Jerusalem? Now you remember in 586, Nebuchadnezzar came back to Jerusalem for the third time. He laid siege on Jerusalem for 2 years, and then he made his move, and he destroyed the wall. He destroyed the king's palace. He destroyed the king's houses. He destroyed the rich people's houses. He destroyed the temple completely. and he left the poorest of poor people in Jerusalem so that they can continue planting stuff and things like that. But God told them that Jerusalem will be desolate. So what happened after Nebuchadnezzar left? The Jews that remained in Jerusalem, there were other Jews living in surrounding areas that was from the northern kingdom. They came into Jerusalem and they took everybody and they said, we got to go to Egypt. If we stay here, we are going to die. So everybody left Jerusalem and Jerusalem was completely desolate. So that was the state of Jerusalem after the year 586 BCE. It was completely desolate. Now Daniel realized that the prophecy is about to be fulfilled so that Jerusalem will be restored and we can go back to Jerusalem. Daniel was excited about that. When you come to the end of Daniel chapter 9, it was a different story. The angel Gabriel told Daniel, 70 years are determined upon thy people. And after 62 years, Messiah will be cut off, but not for himself. So Daniel thought everything will be good after this first 70 years. But remember, in our study, we saw at the end of that chapter, will get worse. And look at verse 26. The people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. So Daniel had hope that the city will be restored. People will go back to Jerusalem. The temple will be built. But now he is seeing at the end of the chapter that the city will be destroyed again and the sanctuary will be destroyed again. And look at verse 26. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolation are determined. Desolation are allotted. Desolation are their their thing, their prophecy. So Jerusalem, while Daniel was looking for a restoration of Jerusalem, he observed, or he was told, no, there is another desolation coming. So the question is, why was Daniel mourning? Because he learned that Jerusalem will never be fully restored. And look at this verse. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Remember, we talk about the 70 years of 7 weeks. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of the abomination, he shall make it desolate. Again, another desolation of Jerusalem is coming, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. And to desolate means to be completely empty. So Daniel started off chapter 9 with hope. Daniel ended up chapter 9 with despair. This is why Daniel was mourning for 3 weeks, or at least one of the reasons why Daniel was mourning for 3 weeks. And this is the 70 weeks that we are talking about. The first 7 weeks, the streets was rebuilt. The 62 weeks or 434 days, Messiah will be killed. That is 69 weeks. Then after that 69 weeks, we have the church age, which is 2,000 years. This period here, hold on, let me get this. Okay. This here is the church age. For some reason, it's not working. 2,000 years of the church age. And the 1 week that we are talking about is this period here. And this is the last week that the desolation will take place into. So Daniel thought that he was going to. All right, let me see if I can get this here. Okay. I guess it's still not working. Anyhow, the last week is the 7 years that is coming. And this is where the desolation will take place. So Daniel thought that he was going to have a peaceful time. He thought Jerusalem will be restored. Instead, he learned that things are going to be worse. Daniel said in verse 3, I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Now, pay attention to this. I ate no pleasant bread. Remember, he's in mourning for 3 weeks. The reason why he is mourning in 3 weeks is because he thought Jerusalem was going to be restored fully. He thought the Jews were going to go back into Jerusalem and reestablish themselves. At the end of the chapter, he learned that no, it's not going to be like that. There is more desolation coming. So he was mourning, he was fasting. Well, when you see he eat no pleasant bread, he ate no flesh, he drink no wine, he didn't anoint himself, is a fast like he did before. So um, he ate no pleasant bread. Pay attention to that, and we will get to that in a minute. Now, Daniel chapter 10, verse 4. And in the 4 and 20th day of the first month, I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel. Now, you might just pass over this verse and you would say, okay, he on the first day of the month, on the 24th date, he was by the river Hiddekel. The river Hiddekel is the Hebrew word for the river Tigris. So the Tigris River is the one that flow eastward towards Assyria and going through Nineveh. So the Hiddekel River or the Tigris River is the same. It flows eastward from the Garden of Eden, and it is called a great river. But the most important thing in this verse is the 4 and 20th day of the first month. You will say Daniel has given us the date on and the month on which he was doing his fast. But there is a lot more to this than meet the eyes. In the 4 and 20th day of the first month, the first month in the Jewish calendar is the month of Nisan. What happens in the month of Nisan? The feast of Passover begins on the 14th of Nisan. And what happens after that? The feast of unleavened bread begins on the 15th of Nisan and ends on the 22nd of Nisan. So during this time of Daniel's 3-week fast, this was a time of feasting. It was a time of the Passover, and it was a time of unleavened bread. Passover, and this is the time that the Jewish people would sit down and rehearse what happened in Egypt and how God delivered them out of Egypt and how they ate the lamb standing and how they killed the lamb and how they ate the lamb and how they was on the move. And remember, Daniel said he ate no pleasant bread. During Passover and during unleavened bread, you will eat the bread without leaven. You will eat the bread without yeast. It is not a pleasant bread. This is why Daniel ate no pleasant bread. Okay? Because it was a time of Passover. And this is another reason why Daniel was in mourning. All Jews wish to go back to Jerusalem to have Passover. All Jews would like to go back to Jerusalem to have the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, Jesus died on a Wednesday, the 14th of Nisan. The Feast of Unleavened Bread was on the 15th of Nisan. The 15th of Nisan will be Thursday, and that is a Sabbath. So, all Saturdays is the Sabbath, but not all Sabbath is the Saturdays. This was a Thursday. and that was the Sabbath. And you, when you read the Bible, a lot of people misinterpret that. They say Jesus was buried before the Sabbath, so it had to be he died on Friday and he had to be buried Friday evening. No, that is not correct. He died on Wednesday. The Thursday was a Sabbath because it was the first day of unleavened bread, and then the feast of unleavened bread went on for 7 days. So it ended on the 22nd of Nisan. And Daniel, he started his fast on the first day of the month, his fast would end on the 21st. If he started on the second day of the month, it will end on the 22nd of Nisan, corresponding with the end of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But today they celebrate Passover. They don't call it Passover anymore. They celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and they celebrate it for 8 days. That will be including the 14th of Nisan to the 22nd of Nisan. So when Daniel said on the 4th and 20th day of the first month, that includes the Passover, it includes the Feast of Unleavened Bread. This is another reason why Daniel was mourning for 21 days. Let's go on. And he said he was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, and that is Daniel chapter 10, verse 4. Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loin was girded with gold, with fine gold of Uphaz. So Daniel lifted up his eyes. He was by the river. He lifted up his eyes, and he saw a certain man clothed in linen. Let's talk about the linen for a minute. A certain man clothed in linen. The curtains in the tabernacle was made out of linen. The royal household or rich people, they used linen. The royal household will have purple linen. The priestly garment was made out of linen. The body of Jesus was wrapped in fine linen for his burial. So linen was very useful in the tabernacle, rich people's house, the priestly garment. So a man wearing linen could be a priest, and then Jesus was buried in linen. Now, in the book of Revelation, the saints and angels in Revelation, Revelation chapter 15, verse 6. And the seven angels came out of the temple, having the seven plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breast girded with a golden girdle. So pure and white linen is a heavenly garment. This man that Daniel saw by the river was clothed in linen. In Revelation chapter 19, verse 8, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. This verse is talking about the church. The church was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. And the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. Linen are heavenly garments. Linen are priestly garments. So this man had to be very important. Revelation chapter 19, verse 14. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. So linen is a heavenly garment. This person wearing linen had to be very important. Now this is the other part to that, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. Now pay attention to this. His loins, this is around his waist, was girded with fine gold. Uphaz is the place where you find fine gold. It's the name of a place. And then in Revelation chapter 1, verse 13, in the midst of the seven candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to his feet, and girded about the paps with a golden girdle. That goes across his chest. So you have two positions for the golden girdle. You have the loins, which is around the waist, and you have around the paps, which is the chest. And then in Revelation 15, 6, the seven angels came out of the temple, having the seven plagues, clothed in pure white linen, having their breasts girdled with a golden girdle. So I did this to show you there are two positions for the girdle. One around your waist, and one is around your chest. Um, in Daniel, the person wearing the linen was also girdled around the waist with a golden girdle. And this is a picture of the two positions. Here you have the one around the waist, and here you have the one around the chest. I do not understand what difference it is, but I guess it have to do with authority. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as a lamp of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polish brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Now, this is a description of the person who was wearing the linen and the gold girdle. This description of this person is very familiar in Revelation chapter 1, verse 13 through 16. And his head and his hair were white like wool and white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as of the sound of many waters, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. So when you look at both of them, which we will be doing in a second, and this is how it is. His body also was like beryl. We'll take a look at beryl in a minute. His face was as the appearance of lightning. This is Daniel. This is John, Revelation chapter 1. His head and his hair was white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes was like a lamp of fire. His eyes was like a flame of fire. This is Daniel. Daniel said his eyes was like a lamp of fire. John said in Revelation his eyes were as a flame of fire. His arms and his feet was like fine, in color of polished brass. That's Daniel speaking. John speaking said, and his feet was like fine brass, as if they burn in a furnace. And Daniel said the voice of his words were like the voice of a multitude. And John said his voice was sound as many waters. So it is likely that this could be the Lord. I don't know, but they are so similar. They are so very similar. Now, this is what a beryl looks like. They are all different shades of beryl, and it could be any one of these. This is just by the way. I want you to see what beryl will look like. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, and the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled and hid themselves. So it's very clear. Daniel was the only one who saw the man clothed in linen with the golden girdle, whose voice was like many waters, and the person he described. Daniel alone saw that. But the people who were with him, they felt the effects of that vision, because there was a great quaking fell upon them, and they fled and they left Daniel alone. Verse 8, therefore I was left alone. I just said that. Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retain no strength. You're going to hear this phrase a number of times. No strength in me. I retain no strength. Why is that? Remember, Daniel was 83 years old. Daniel was fasting for 3 weeks at 83 years old. and he was now recovering. It was 2 days, maybe 3 days after he broke his fast. So he was very weak. But the effects of the vision on Daniel, it drained his strength. And I want you to pay attention to how Daniel responded to the vision. He said, I have no strength in me. I retain no strength. And it comes better. And yet heard I the voice of his words. And when I heard the voice of his words, then I was in a deep sleep on my face, and my face towards the ground. So Daniel was standing, and I want you to pay attention to the different position Daniel placed his body in, or the different postures that Daniel placed himself in. Originally, he was standing. Now he's on a deep sleep. He fell on his face. His face was towards the ground, but he could hear what was taking place. So first he was weak. He had no strength remaining in him. Now he a deep sleep fell upon him. He fell on his face. His face was towards the ground. And behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my feet and upon the palm of my hand. So he changed position again. Now he's on all four. He's on his knees and he's on the palm of his hands. So he is a mess when he saw this vision. This is how he responded to the vision. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved. This is the second time he's addressing Daniel like this. O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee. Stand upright. So now he changed position again from on all fours. He have to stand upright. So he is changing position left, right, and center. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. So Daniel went from standing flat on his face, on all fours, and now he's standing trembling. He was alone. Everybody else left him. So he was standing there. He don't know who touched him though. He said he felt a hand touching him. Now, so he came near where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell on my face. This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 17. This is what happened in Daniel chapter 8. This is how Daniel responds to spiritual experiences. He fell on his face in Daniel chapter 8 when he saw the vision in Daniel chapter 8. So it's very similar to Daniel chapter 10. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face towards the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. It's a repeat of Daniel chapter 8, verse 18. Daniel fell on his face. Daniel was in a deep sleep again. And Daniel said, when he touched me, I was set upright. So this is how Daniel responded to his spiritual experiences. Now look at Daniel chapter 8, verse 27. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterwards I rose up and did the king's business. And I was astonished at the vision. Now, why am I showing you this in the book of Daniel? This is chapter 8. This is how Daniel responded in Daniel chapter 8. And he responds so similar in Daniel chapter 10. Now remember, Daniel was 83 years old. In chapter 8, he was in his 70s. And Daniel was a righteous man. Daniel in chapter 9, Daniel was confessing his sins and the sins of his people. So Daniel was one of the holiest person around. But this is how he responded to spiritual experience. Now today, I told you that to tell you this. And on YouTube, on the internet, you will find scores of people testifying that they've been to heaven, they walk with Jesus, they talk with Jesus. Would you say us living today compared to Daniel's life Is there a difference? If Daniel experienced or his experience with the Lord in those days, or his spiritual experience, he could not stand up, he fell on his face, he fell on deep sleep. But you will find people saying, "Oh, I met Jesus and I put my hand around him." Lord, did somebody hurt you? One guy said the Lord came to his hotel. The angel came and tell him the Lord is in the next room. He want to see you. And he walked into the room and he talked with the Lord, and the Lord was crying. And you will find stories after stories after stories. Compare their stories to that of Daniel and figure out which one could be true. So Daniel, this is what Daniel experienced. Daniel, as a holy person, this is how his body respond to his spiritual experiences. Then said he unto me, "Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words." So Daniel fasted and prayed and mourned and seek God's face for 21 days. His prayers was answered on the first day. He fasted and prayed for 20 days extra because he would have gotten the answer on the first day. But for some reason, he didn't get it. Now, let me show you the lifestyle of Daniel. Daniel said in verse 12, the answer was, from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand. Daniel set his heart to understand. Daniel set his heart towards God. Now in Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat. Daniel was about 13 years old when he had already purposed in his heart not to defile himself with a portion of the king's meat. He already had a purpose towards God in his life at the age of 13. And then in chapter 2, that they should desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning the secret. This is when Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to explain the dream, tell him his dream and the explanation. They desired the mercies of the God of heaven. So in Daniel chapter 1, he purposed in his heart. Daniel chapter 2, he desired the mercy. This is a little deeper than wanting to. He desired the mercy of the God of heaven. And then the next verse, Daniel chapter 6, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem. He knelt upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed, as he did aforetime, as he did before, as he always did. He will go to his house, open the window towards Jerusalem, and he will pray 3 times a day. What am I telling you? From 13 years old, as he continued in his life in Babylon, he desired mercies from the God of heaven. He prayed 3 times a day. So he had a relationship with the God of heaven. He knew his God. And then in Daniel chapter 9, verse 3, and I set my face unto the Lord to seek him, to seek by prayer and supplication and with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. I set my face. So this is in his 70s, and he still directed his desire towards God. So Daniel had a relationship with God from before the age of 13, and now he's in his 80s. And in those days, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. He was 83 years old, and he was still seeking God. For from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand. So Daniel being 83 years old, starting from before 13 years old to 83 years old, all his life, he developed a relationship with his God. So what is the results about that? What was the benefits of that? In Daniel chapter 1, verse 17, and God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all vision, because he desired and he purpose in his heart not to defile himself. The result was God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning. And then in Daniel chapter 6, because he prayed 3 times a day, for my God has sent his angel and has shut the lion's mouth. That was the results of Daniel's prayer. So Daniel had a give and take relationship with the Lord from a very young age. And while I was speaking, this is Daniel chapter 9, verse 20 and 21. And while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sins and the sins of my people Israel, yea, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel came with the answer. Why did that happen? That happened because Daniel had a relationship with God from the beginning. It was an unbroken relationship with his God. So when Daniel prayed, God had to answer because of the relationship Daniel had with God from a youth to the present day. And then, why did Daniel take 21 days to get the answer? But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. So the angel Gabriel, the same angel from chapter 9, he is the one talking to Daniel in chapter 10. And he said, Daniel, your prayers were answered from day one. But while I was on my way down to bring the answer to you, I was interrupted. I was stopped by the prince of Persia. Now, I'm amazed to see people talk about the prince of Persia as Cyrus. No, this is not Cyrus. This is not a physical encounter. This is a spiritual encounter. And let me tell you a little secret. When I was about 10, 12, 13 years old, Pastor Harold Biran, he founded the Open Bible Church in Gads. He was the founder of that church. And he taught on this scripture. I was about 10 to 12 years old when I heard this for the first time. And I was amazed at it then, and I'm still amazed of it. What we get to see here is an insight to what takes place spiritually. Daniel's prayers went up to heaven. God gave the answer. God sent Gabriel back to earth with the answer. But on the way down, the answer was interrupted by the prince of Persia. The prince of Persia will be a demon prince that is in charge of the nation of Persia. And he stopped Gabriel from coming to Daniel with the answer. And Gabriel said, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. So Gabriel, he needed help. Because the prince of Persia was a strong foe. So Michael came and helped him or release him so that he can come to Daniel with the answer. So what was happening here, I guess the answer came, remember the answer came on day 24. And this prince of Persia withstood Gabriel for 21 days. Okay, so the answer is now coming on day 24. And what I want you to pay attention to here is Michael, one of the chief princes. Michael is one of the chief princes. Now look at Revelation chapter 8, verse 2. And I saw the seven angels which stood before God. The seven angels which stood before God. And to them was given seven trumpets. These seven angels. So what this is telling us is there are seven angels that is standing before God to do whatever he wants them to do. There are seven angels. Remember what Gabriel told Zechariah? I am Gabriel who stand in the presence of God. So we know one, Gabriel. We know two, Michael. He's one of the princes. In the Jewish faith, they got all seven listed. But there are seven angels. Michael is one of them that stand before God. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. For yet the vision is for many days. Now this is important. Pay attention to it. This piece here. I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. And this is the same thing we saw in Daniel chapter 9. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. What shall befall thy people in the latter days? It's all about the Jewish people in the latter days. It is all about the Jewish people in the 70 weeks. So this is important. What shall befall thy people? Okay, how did I get here? What shall befall thy people in the latter days? And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision, because Gabriel came to make him understand. Gabriel came to help him understand. And when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face towards the ground, and I became dumb. Again, Daniel's body is still responding to the angel and what was taking place around him. I set my face towards the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitude of the sons of man touched my lip. Then, then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrow is turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. Again, this is the third time Daniel is saying, I do not have any strength. For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For me, straightway there remain no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. Daniel is showing his age in these verses. He said, for the fourth time, the fifth time, I have no strength. I have no breath left in me. And this is what this is how it goes. There remain no strength in me. I retain no strength. I have retained no strength. Straightway there remain no strength in me. Four times Daniel talk about not having any strength. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me. So now Daniel is getting an answer to the complaint that he have no strength, he have no strength. One like the appearance of a man came and touched him, and he was strengthened, and said, O man greatly beloved. Again, this is the third time that Daniel is addressed this way. O man greatly beloved. Daniel was a man greatly beloved. Daniel was a man who had a relationship with God from his youth. And this is how he responded to his his spiritual experience. Fear not. This is the second time he was told, fear not. Peace be unto thee, be strong, yea, be strong. Daniel complaining 4 times, I have no strength. The angel is saying, be strong, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened immediately. I was strengthened and said, let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. The second time he said, thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, knowest thou therefore I am come unto thee, and I will return to fight with the prince of Persia. So the battle wasn't over yet. This spiritual battle wasn't over yet. Gabriel have to go back and help Michael fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. So this is the next kingdom that is going to take place. And the kingdom of Grecia also have a demon angel that guide them and show them what to do, or control the nation. So this is what we have. Michael, one of the chief prince, he is for Israel. And there are other princes or other demon angels for all these other nations. This is what happens in the spiritual realm. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me these things, but Michael your prince. Michael is the prince of Israel. Michael is the one that protects Israel. Michael is the one that fights for Israel, and we will see that in Daniel chapter 12. We will see that in the book of Revelation. So this brings us to the end of Daniel chapter 10. And what Daniel did here was he set the stage for chapter 12. Once you understand what was taking place, how Daniel arrived at what he arrived at, then you will understand Daniel chapter 12. So this is why we did Daniel chapter 10. He set the stage. He tell you about the battle, the spiritual battle that took place, how his body responded, how he responded, what time of the year it was, about the different feasts, and why he was in mourning, and stuff like that. Now, next time we meet, we will deal with Daniel chapter 12, which is the closing chapter, but it closes off with the Jewish people. We still have to do Daniel chapter 11. So at this point, I would stop here and I'll turn back over to Pastor Michael. I hope you enjoyed it.